Welcome to Thursday Night Knives. I'm your host, Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco, and with me tonight is Teryl Todd, one half of Todd Knife and Tool, and also you know him as Zelrick42 on YouTube. Thanks for coming on, Zel.
Well, thanks for having me on again. I really enjoy doing this with you guys.
Always a pleasure. Well, coming up tonight, we have new knives from SHOT Show. We have the state of our collections. We have listener topic requests. But before we get to that, and much, much more on Thursday Night Knives, join the conversation, comment, let us know your opinions and questions. And remember, the more you ask us, hey, how's it going, Spirited Whiskey? The more you comment, the more the conversation continues. So Jim, working his magic behind the switcher, will put your name up on the screen and your comment. And hello, Barry. And we will get right to it. So what do you say, Zell? We dive right in.
Sounds good to me. I've got to get myself a really cool background like you've got, though. These machines are kind of boring.
Well, no, it's actually perfect because those are the machines that you're prototyping your new Todd Knife and Tool designs on. And actually, before we get to some of the SHOT Show stuff I wanted to talk about, chief among them, Benchmade and Wee Knives, I want to talk about the Wee knife you have coming out.
Yeah, we have the root kit. Now, if I can... Oh, there we go. This is the first production prototype. And I know we're going to talk about bearings and washers later. Mm-hmm. This one is on washers. And it was a request from us. We was kind of maybe not, but they went ahead and did it, and they knocked the action out of the park. It's as good as their bearing knives with that little bit of smooth resistance you get out of a set of good bushings.
Well, I have to say, the design of that knife is really appealing to me. It's got some characteristics of the blade on your newest knife. Why does the name escape me? What was the latest knife?
Oh, and now you're going to mess with me because I've got it right here in my hand and I can't think of it.
Oh, God, I love that. Well, okay, so it's got the blade character, that sort of leaf-shaped blade, but it's got a, more slender, contoured, subtle handle shape, neutral handle shape almost, and yet still you maintain a lot of your design cues throughout the surface of it with the cool milling and the layers and the surfaces. Can you put that up to the screen again?
The new one?
The root kit? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, root kit?
Okay, so all of our knives, malware, root kit, the one I can't think of right now, the upcoming exploit, my brother is in computer programming. Mm-hmm. And that's some part of what I do. And we just kind of stumbled on that. We've got the dogs, and then, you got all these hacker terms and stuff that we have to deal with every day. And we just kind of went with it. Something nobody else is using. It's been hot and cold. There are some people like the malware. Uh-huh. There's some people that just get all sorts of sideways. Yeah, I see you've got one.
Oh, God. Yeah, this was a gift from a viewer, and I love this knife. Oh. I got to say, more than I expected. And, I was so hot on the Roxy 4, and this is like the perfect, I don't want to say antidote to the Roxy 4, but I love this knife. If I were a Viking and I were dressing up for a space ball, this is what I would carry. Barry, welcome.
Barry, we are working towards hitting probably not 14C28 in, but we are working towards getting some more budget models, or getting some budget models out there. Believe it or not, it's not as easy as you might think to get the budget models going. But we're working on it.
So Edwin is a washer guy, yeah, with his collection of Emersons. I'm sorry, I'm always bringing that up, Edwin. I'm not surprised. Yes, of course, you may call me Bob. Yes, I have. Okay, so the SHOT Show vids, we're gonna get to those in just a second. But Zell, I wanna back up to what you were just saying right before we went to that graphic.
Okay. Well, what was I saying?
I can't remember.
No. I don't know. we were talking about the root kit, and the
Yeah.
root kit is going to be, like I said, it's on bushings, and yeah, it resembles our leaf-shaped blade that we've had in the previous knife, and that was somewhat the point, was to get a more gentlemanly version of that knife.
Oh.
Because this one is huge. I mean, it is
that's
a hard-working, you know, I mean, it carries well, but it is big.
Okay, so I'm remembering what I wanted to address, and that was, you said it's more difficult to get the budget models going than perhaps the high end models. Why is that?
Some of the companies, not all of them, they want you to play in one space or the other, and they don't want to have a knife transition between budget and high end. For instance, say it was we, and I'm not going to blame anybody right now, but we're just going to say it's we and take the Roxy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want us to move that knife to the Civivi line or a version of it. Or, you know, and some companies do.
Now, is that because it'll take the wind out of the sails of the original Roxy?
That's what they believe. Now, I tend to think otherwise. And Wee's not one that does that. I just use them as an example. They're pretty open to that. But getting it to move forward, a lot of these companies want to do one design, then another design, then another design. They don't want to do anything over again. And it's, you know, it makes things kind of tough, because what we would like to do is take some of these designs that we already have and put them in a simplified version in the budget category.
Right. Actually, I think your knives are prime for that, because they are all really unique and desirable, and they're in a price realm that might be just above what a lot of people are willing to spend. But if it were possible to drop those designs into a slightly, less expensive range, I think people would gobble them up, because they have a lot of what people want right now.
Yeah, and we're going to get to some of that here in a little bit.
Excellent. Hey, Jim, could you bring that last graphic up? All right. Well, yeah. Knife vids and models. Okay. So Blade HQ, interesting. So I have been watching those Blade HQ videos, and not all of them. Primarily the ones I'm most interested in first. But today I watched one from New York. What are they? New York Knife Company.
Oh boy.
In Orleans.
Oh
boy.
Remember.
Oh man, I wish so, I'm terrible. Well, huge company from New York. They're the ones who put out K-Bar and a lot of those things, a lot of those knives. They came out with this cool little folder with linen micarta and titanium frame lock, but it's with Aus-8 steel. And it's under $50, which I think it's under $50, or it's around that range. And I get it. I get bringing micarta into that price range. I don't get bringing titanium into that price range. If you're not going to match the titanium with slightly more flashy steel, Aus-8 is completely adequate for most of us, but titanium, I've always felt like titanium deserves. Ontario, thank you, Barry.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Barefoot. Also, Ontario, you saw me sweating.
It's Shodan, by the way.
Shodan.
So we can both quit sweating.
Yeah, yeah, right. So to me, titanium deserves a different steel, or I don't know why. Probably that's just made up.
I kind of feel a little bit different about that, because maybe I know a little bit about what's going on in the back end. But if we have knives that they're making thousands and thousands of, the prices start to kind of come together. And we should be seeing some titanium knives with some, say, S30V or S35VN and some of these other lower end of the upper end of steel at 150 bucks.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason not to. I mean, Kershaw shows us that.
With which knives?
Now they're using aluminum handles on the dividend and a couple of the others,
right?
But still, they're putting M390 and stuff in them,
yes,
and selling them for less than $100. Now they could go $120 and use titanium.
Right. Huh. So actually, what do you prefer, titanium or aluminum, and why?
I'm kind of here nor there on that.
Okay.
Titanium, if I'm making the knife, I want to use titanium because of the properties of titanium. It's springy. It does everything I need to do. I don't have to have a liner. I don't have to have an inset liner lock or any of the other things. But if it's just something I'm buying, I'm good with aluminum as long as the price is right, because aluminum is going to mar, and it's going to be a user.
Yeah, it's going to look cool after you've carried it a while. That's one thing. I've been on a little aluminum kick, and later I'm going to talk a little bit about this Launch 9 that I got that it's so addicted to. It's such a cool, cute little scalpel of a thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to ask your opinion on a few things. I was looking at Knife News, one of my main sources for the latest drops, and they were looking at Benchmade knives coming out for SHOT Show, and there are a couple of pretty interesting things, and then a lot of the same, and a couple of Mr. Furley issues here, but I'll get to that in a second. But the cool thing, I mean, the real standout to me is the Tengu. Have you seen this? The Tengu. It's a Jared Osser design.
Yeah, I just looked at it, and I'm not feeling it, but if you are, that's awesome.
Well, let me tell you why I'm feeling it, and why I think it's good for Benchmade, because I never would have guessed it was a Benchmade, first of all, in looking at it, except for the
good point.
The marking. And but I'm loving this East meets West with the Tanto, and then the sort of traditional style blade there. Styled handle there with the shield and all that. But it's a flipper, and it's on bearings with nice steel. What is it? It's got 20 CV, slightly under 3 inches. It's a thrust bearing pivot. What are thrust bearings? Are those rollers? Kind of.
It's what I know of as a thrust bearing is not going to be what's in that knife. They're probably using a multi-row flat bearing and calling it a thrust bearing. Be my guess, but it's not going to be anything unusual.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. So this is the Benchmade from this year's SHOT Show that I've seen. That to me, I'm like, oh, this is something, and I think this will. This will bring in the ducats for them. It doesn't have a clip, and it comes in a nice stitched leather pocket slip. Who doesn't like a nice stitched leather pocket slip?
Well, I would agree, though I don't use them.
Yeah, right. Okay. Maybe if it had a clip on it. So the mini Bugout, which to me is already mini, but hey, this is under 3 inches, and it's a mere 1.5 ounces.
That's actually very important. It's something that a lot of companies and designers miss, are those break points. 2.9, 2.95 inches, 3.4, 3.45, and 3.8 to 3.9. And that is something Benchmade's hitting, and they'll sell a ton of these things, especially they're saying 2.82. Yeah, they're going to sell just tons of those.
Okay, so explain the importance of that, of these different ranges you were just mentioning.
Okay, well, all over the United States and other countries, you have these blade length limits. And most companies, until the past 2 or 3 years, if they've sold a 3-inch knife, a 3.5-inch knife, and a 4-inch knife, unless a design fell somewhere in between. But that, if it was a company design knife, that's where they fell. And the people that are nervous about the knife laws in these areas, if it says 3 inches, they're not going to buy it. Mm. They want it to be from the manufacturer 2.9, 2.95, 2.82, whatever. Right. And it's smart, because if they get pulled over for whatever, some minor offense, but they have to go to court for it, and whatever officer piles on all these charges and puts a knife charge on them, their lawyer can go say, hey, Benchmade says this thing is 2.82 inches.
Yes.
So my client did his due diligence.
Yes, yes. In my case, it would be Cold Steel says this is 6 inches, so he's going to jail.
Right.
Yeah, so this is coming in orange and satin, like we see on screen, but it's also coming in sort of a Star Wars Imperial theme, white grivery handles with a black blade, kind of tuxedo-y. That I have to say sounds kind of cool to me.
It does sound cool. I don't know if I could carry it though.
Yeah,
white handles.
Yeah, you're a dandy when you wear white handles, or when you carry. No. When you have a knife and it's got white handles, you're actually wearing it. You're not carrying it. Yeah.
There you go.
So they also have something coming out called the Mediator. It's a 3.3 inch switchblade, out the side, automatic. To me, it reminds me of the 940. Any thoughts on that knife?
I love the blade profile there. Out the side automatics for me are kind of why, with the actions that are on current knives, but I'm sure that there's a market for it, and using that 940 blade profile is a smart thing to do. It's iconic for Benchmade.
Yeah. Can you explain the funny looking area, the sharpening choil, but then it comes back down and you have some tang material there right before the handle? What's all that?
I would have to see how their lock mechanism is actually working.
Okay.
But my guess is they wanted to put a sharpening choil in, and then to make the knife work with the locking mechanism, the other part was necessary.
That little foot there. Okay, that's what I thought. It's kind of a it's kind of an ugly point for me, but you know, I don't pay attention to the important things, just how things look. But I love the milling on the side of the handle. I think that looks
it looks really good.
Yeah, it also looks like it would be very grippy and comfortable at the same time.
Yeah, but they've got a lock on the automatic. The button should do all the work.
Agreed. And it should be recessed in such a way, and actually from that picture, it looks like it is. It should be recessed in such a way that, you know, it doesn't matter. I have a fair number of, I have a number of automatics, and I'm always trying to like hit them against the table when I'm bored, just to see if they'll pop open, and it never happens.
Right. I mean, that's there are some police departments though that do require that. So.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, I guess you got to do what you got to do when you want to sell knives. Two other things I want to mention: the heralded, not the heralded, the much loved 940 is turning 20 this year, so they're releasing one in S90V with titanium handles, and that's kind of, I got to say, like that's the 940 I would get. I had one and I enjoyed playing with it, but I didn't enjoy using it that much, I got to say. And I got rid of it, and I've always kind of regretted it, but never had the steam to pick up another.
Well, you know, I have personally never owned a 940. I've had its bigger brother. I forget what number that one is, but you know, if they get the blades cut right and don't have any of the previous Benchmade things on them, they'll sell the bejesus out of them, because a 940 in titanium is what a lot of people would like to see.
Yes, I mean, I think they've probably wanted to see that for a long time. And then the last thing I want to bring up is another gold class knife, and you know, I love Benchmade, but sometimes they're like a goofy uncle to me, and their gold class knives are always radically expensive for what to me amounts to kind of an uglification of a knife. So I call it Mr. Furley, you know, like Mr. Furley from Three's Company,
right?
Way back in the day, and he'd wear these crazy leisure suits in one pattern, and a shirt in a different pattern, and then a scarf in another pattern. And to me, it's like Damascus next to Timascus next to some crazy carbon fiber. It's too much for the eye.
Well, I kind of agree. I looked at that and I was like, what the heck are they doing? Are they trying to get some kind of camo pattern on the handle and then Damascus, and then I don't even know what they stuck in there for inlay.
That's called that's marbled carbon fiber handle scales with Raffir Alum Yellow Moon inlays. Raffir Alum Yellow Moon inlays. So
yeah, it's overdone. I don't even, and personal opinion, but I don't even like the marble carbon fiber they're using. I mean, and I love me some marble carbon fiber.
why? What are your issues with our marble carbon fiber?
Well, okay, I've got here's this is what Best Tech used for marble carbon fiber, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's nice.
And this is whatever supplier we is using for marble carbon fiber.
Mm-hmm.
A little more subtle, but still really nice. That stuff they got there looks like they just grabbed all the end chunks, threw them in a press, and it's got big sections in it that look weird.
Big, yeah, movements and such. I'm with Barefoot 130. It is ugly. I find all of the gold class knives ugly. They're kind of like, to me, it's like money cannot buy taste. And I'm not saying they're in bad taste. I don't mean to like be like dissing on Benchmade, though I'm sure they can survive it. But to me, it's like it's too much, and too much is too much. And to me, that's a taste issue. The knife itself is beautiful. The Crooked River is a gorgeous knife.
It is. And, you know, I haven't bought a Benchmade in 3, 4, 5 years. Hmm. And so maybe I'm wrong at this point, but the reason I quit is they didn't have their basics down. You got knives off center, you got knives with bad grinds, all that sort of thing. And at the price point, once we came into things and the companies that followed them, you couldn't get away with that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've straightened it up or not. Hopefully they have, because, you know, there's some Benchmades I'd like to have. I'd like to have another 940. It's actually 941, the drop point one.
Yes. Oh, that's a nice looking knife, I got to say. Spirited Whiskey. I'm agreeing with you for $340. Yeah, to me, that's another problem with the gold class. It's like they I don't want to say complicate them, because that's not the right word. They spruce
raise the price unnecessarily.
Yeah. Blasphemy, says Alex. Well, you know it's true, sir. Well, in the case of Benchmade, I think they just pile on as much trendy material as possible and then charge as much as possible. You know, I'm way more a black class, blue class kind of guy. Why are metal handle knives so popular when having a secure grip is my first concern, and my favorite handle is Spyderco bidirectional handle? Interesting. Well, what do you think, Zel?
If you're gonna go out and use that knife every day, then Spyderco is the only company to go to. And I'm a guy that designs and sells knives. It just is. You buy the ones with the bidirectional handles. You buy the goods, not the good steel, the decent steel, mm-hmm. and you use it till it breaks, and you buy another one.
Okay, you say the decent steel, not the great steel. Why?
Well, you don't want the VG10 because Spyderco leaves it soft.
Uh-huh.
And like this is S110V. You don't want to spend for the S110V whenever you're going to go out and use it and break it and buy another one.
Right. Okay. So Thomas says he likes that they push the envelope in steel, but he's not crazy about the leaf shape. To me, it depends on the leaf shape. I don't like every leaf shape I see, but the the Mannix and the Sage, I mean, to me, those are classic and beautiful. But you mentioned pushing the envelope with steels, and this year they have they're featuring CPM Spy 27. Is that right? Spy 27. And
I don't know.
That's a new steel that Spyderco developed with Crucible. And then they're using a new steel also. It's S45VN.
Yeah,
so
I've heard of that.
10 more there, and that makes it better.
Right.
I really, I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there who will notice the difference. I certainly wouldn't, just with my use, but I think it's cool too that they kind of pioneer that stuff, and that they're never resting.
Well, what I like about Spyderco is they give us options like this is a military and CPM M4. Nobody else is going to give me a knife in that material. And it's one of my favorite materials to have around the shop because sharpen it up once and you're done with it for a long time.
Hmm. Yeah, just their they have a width and breadth of their catalog that is impressive to me. The way they go down the ethnic route, and then they have deep bench. They have all sorts of sprints, and I mean they're a great company. What's not to love about Spyderco? Except some of their designs are a little ugly, but we've come to love that. I think.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Now Spyderco pricing can get a little weird and not make any sense. But as long as you know what you're buying and you're careful about some of their price problems, you're in good shape.
So Alex says Spy 27 should be interesting, the added cobalt. And I'm not sure what that does. Zell, I'm going to ask you about that in a second. S45 is going to be S30V edge retention, but more stainless. But but more stainless. Okay. So added cobalt, what does that do?
I'm not exactly sure what they're using it for. Generally, the cobalt will give you a little extra hardness. Okay. And I don't know, it may do a lot of these additives anymore, they allow you to keep more of the chromium whenever you heat treat the steel, essentially letting you have a stainless steel at a lower chromium value. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal with the nitrogen steels.
I agree. I have a military, an S110V, and a native 5 in Maximet. Maximet, that's super hard, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the great things about Spyderco. You can play with all these steels generally at a somewhat reasonable price. I mean, I don't know what they cost now, but my S110V Mannix here was like $120.
Wow. Yeah, I managed to get one of the M4 special releases or exclusives from Blade HQ. I got the Yojimbo too. It's my favorite Spyderco knife. And when that came out in S110V, or in M4, I jumped all over it. And my experience with M4 up until that point was only with the Contigo, the Benchmade Contigo, and I loved it. That was a pretty tough knife too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to move on to We Knife Company, which you have a special relationship with and a lot of experience with. But some of the knives that they're coming out with this year at SHOT Show are just out, and the first one in the Knife News article, and I would say one of the most exciting here is the Mini Buster by Snex.
Yeah.
I can never, I've been following him on Instagram for years, watching these meticulous builds of these crazy folders. And just kind of, I look at his name and in my head, I don't say anything. I just recognize the letters, but you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Snex, his last name is Tan. Anyway, he's got this really interesting sort of Warncliffe folder that looks a lot like some of the ones he's done in the past, but I'm just assuming a little bit smaller because it's 3.4 inches, and he has his older the knives he'd been working on the past couple of years, I know, have been a little bit larger. Can't remember the name of the one that he built to chop coconuts with, but it was it took him a year and a half, and he machined it beautifully without any hardware or something like that. I would assume that We Knife Company wants to make production of it a little bit easier. But this knife looks pretty cool. What do you think of this thing?
I like it. It's not one for me because of some things with how the handle works, but it's one that is going to fit in a lot of people's hands extremely well and work extremely well for them. Especially, it looks like it's a big flat ground cleaver-ish blade. Mm-hmm. that should be, I can't gauge sales, but man, it ought to be one that people like a lot.
It's like the perfect knife for the rich blue collar worker.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks to me, it looks very utilitarian, very like the blade looks like it's all business. You could do a lot of work with that, but it's got an elegance and a style that's,
absolutely.
kind of cultivated. Though 3.4 is a little small. Wow, Wee Knives impressed me so far. All right, Alex, you're gonna have to tell me how. I'm sure Alex has one of this guy's knives. Snacks.
Yeah.
Ferrum Forge has the Odium coming out through Civivi, and we had the guys from Ferrum Forge on the Knife Junkie podcast. They're great, and they are prolific. They just keep coming out with designs. It's nice.
Okay. I'm going to pick on Chris and his brother, though.
Okay, wait. Before you do, let me just say, I like that they have a knife coming out with Civivi. So if you're into their designs, Civivi puts it in reach.
Okay.
Go.
Now it's my turn to pick on them. All right. Love those guys to death. They are awesome. They're fun. And guys, come on. Chris, guys, give us something new. Almost every one of your designs is so similar to the last one. And I know you've hit on something great and people love it, but still, give me something new.
Okay, so interesting you should say that. And I thought that when I saw this, I was like, I've seen that design before. And then I saw that it's Civivi, and I'm like, okay, well, they are now. This is them bringing this design, which we've seen before, but in a higher end, in a couple of higher end sort of platforms. Now we're seeing it brought down budget wise, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
But I cannot disagree with your assessment. They definitely have a very strong design language. I don't even like but they're killing it so far. Yeah, no doubt. And then this next one, Alex, you might like this one. The Banter. Ben Peterson, Riot collabs with custom makers right now, on top of game, in my opinion. I agree with you, especially my Crossroads, my Kirby Lambert, a designer or a maker whose knives, I can't imagine ever owning, and yet I can own a Riot. So
right,
that's a nice thing. So Ben Peterson, formerly of Blade HQ, you know him as he was their marketing head of marketing. Great guy. Seemingly, I don't know, never met him, but he seems like a great guy. And he came out.
Ben is a great guy.
And is a great guy. You've met him.
Yeah. I've been out to dinner with him a couple times and stuff. He's great.
So did you see his new knife from Wii?
Not yet.
Oh, it's beautiful. Jim, if you can bring it up.
I've seen the picture, yes.
Oh,
but I haven't seen it in person. Sorry.
Got you. No. It's the one right above that one, Jim.
Yep.
But it's in Ben blue. He loves blue, and I think a few of the Blade HQ exclusives, if I'm not mistaken, were in his favorite color blue. And I remember from his videos, he always talked about like the perfect length knife, or a perfect length blade was one that he could extend his finger down the edge, down the spine of the blade, and kind of touch the tip. And so this knife looks like it's right in that. It's 2.9 inches. So just looks like a perfect little user knife. And I find it, and I really don't mean this as in a bad way. I find it kind of cute. It's kind of endearing. That's the word I'm going to use. It's endearing.
That's a good word. I like it.
Yeah.
And I like what they're doing here. I really, really think though that they should have brought this one into the Civivi line.
I do too, because of the aesthetics.
Not just because of the aesthetics, but because, and I'm talking dollars and cents here a little bit, but at that one's probably going to be $150 to $200 would be my guess. And if you brought it into the Civivi line at the upper end at $80 or $90, they would fly off the shelves.
Right. And you wouldn't have to put S35 VN, but you could still have it be a liner lock with G10, I would assume, and make that price.
Absolutely.
What does we use if they don't use S35? Like, what do they do anything? It's $110.
$110. Okay.
That's actually a pretty good
Alex,
price, man.
Yeah, you may have just squashed all over my theories.
Yeah, Alex has 3 of them.
Because at $110, they're going to sell like hotcakes. Simply, I mean, it's good knife, but just because of Ben.
Yeah.
They're gone.
It's also, I have to say, just in looking at it, might give this knife a run for its money a little bit.
Yeah, might.
It's got some of those characteristics anyway. Very neutral and useful looking. So,
and it's just exactly what I would have expected from Ben.
Yeah.
Simple, utilitarian, nothing flashy except the blue.
Yeah, the blue. Yeah, I'll get one just to support him too. Actually, I'd like to. I'd love to have him on the show and meet him. So the next group of knives, they're all in-house designed WE knives, and we run into a bunch of Mr. Furley issues, if you ask me. I mean, all sorts of materials and Damascus, and they're just busy. They just look busy. But when you look at the designs, like if you could see them just in black and white and see the design outline, they are gorgeous, all of them. One of them, the Loken, is very reminiscent of a ZT0452CF, if you ask me, but not enough to be egregious. They've got that beautiful Bowie, the Jaga, that has a blade that is reminiscent to it. I mean, the whole thing is a little reminiscent to a Tashi blade knife to me,
right?
But also not derivative to the point where I'm like,
Oh, it doesn't have a Tashi point on it, so it's okay.
Yeah, right. You mean on the tail end?
Right.
Yeah. And then this Boreas, it reminds me of a Reich knife. It's all sculpted to look like bones and kind of ancient.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a good job. And Jim, if you can bring that back up and show the very last one, I think it is. I couldn't pronounce the name of it, so let me see here. I've got it.
That one?
Opoleon? I don't know.
Yes. Keep going after that one. That one right there.
That right there.
That is gorgeous.
Okay, here's the deal. That is the first integral that we did, the 602, I think, or 702.
Uh-huh.
But it has distal taper and a hollow ground blade.
Ooh, really?
So I have not talked Joe into it yet, but I want to see that one in production in standard livery.
Yeah.
Without all that stuff, without all the extra stuff. The 702, I just love the knife. The only problem is it had no distal taper to it, and it was flat ground.
So at the tip it had that flared out edge, which I think looks cool, but God, this is a really nice looking knife. And what I love is that they are not afraid to go big. These knife these blade lengths 3.8 inches. Like, yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah, I've actually talked to the owner, Joe, about those things, and it's his opinion that 3.7 to 3.8 is perfect. So that's one of the reasons we work so well with the Todd Knife and Tool stuff, because that's about where all our stuff is.
Right. I would have to concur. That is perfect. You go to 4 inches and then, it's extremely awesome and useful. But as you say, you could run into legal issues with that depending on where you live. But yeah, those bigger knives. So I wanted to mention also Ostap Hell. You know him?
I don't.
You know him, Ostap Hell. He's the guy who designed now it's the Real Steel Metamorph. The front flipper. He's got a number of cool designs out. Well, I think this is his first one with WE. It's called the Pier, and it looks kind of like an updated. Yeah, there it is. It looks sort of Italian stiletto-y, kind of. It has that long and just looking at it from this picture, it looks like it has an amazing blade to handle ratio. It looks almost 1-to-1.
Oh yeah, I am actually. That's one of them for this year from Wii. I'm really digging. I'm not gonna be real happy about the way they ground the blade, but besides that, anytime I can get a lot of blade and a small handle, I'm all about it.
So what are your issues with how they're going to grind the blade? Is it just because it's a shallow blade with a saber grind?
No, it's more of they're putting the false edge to give it the stiletto look on the back, and that you could have used for other things, like a taller grind.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could have that. You could have it more of a bayonet grind and move the main edge, or move the swedge down a little bit. The thing I don't like about a swedge coming all the way up to the top is that I like to put my thumb on the back of the blade if there's no edge there. But if there's kind of an edge there, or it's like really thin, it's very uncomfortable to
Right.
So that's why I like the bayonet grind. If you don't have a fully sharpened back swedge that goes all the way to the ricasso, make mine a bayonet, please.
Right.
With some jimping, some nice fat jimping for when I'm operating. Bob Terzuola, he's got one. That's amazing. He's got this Roadside Rescue. It's a skeletonized handled fixed blade kind of sheep's foot for rescue, and it's coming out with Civivi.
Right. And I think you're going to see more of this out of Wee Knife Company with the fixed blades coming out in the 8CR or 9CR18 and maybe D2, but probably the 9CR18 from various people.
So 9CR18. So they say here that the Roadside Rescue will be in D2, but 9CR18 MOV. What are the characteristics of that? It sounds, strikingly suspiciously like 8CR13. I'm assuming it's different, right?
You can be quiet, Bob.
So
okay, it is very close to American 440C.
Okay,
and they've been using it now for about a year in several different models, and there hasn't, to my knowledge, been any major complaint, fuss, cry, except for people confusing it with 8CR13.
Okay.
That second number in those steels is your chromium content. The first number is your carbon content. So you're nearly 1% carbon and 18% chromium. So you're close to 440C.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So it shouldn't pay too much attention to how it sounds. Should probably look at the chemistry.
Right.
Oh.
And, that's one of the things Wee has done over the past year or so is they've got that steel out there and people are liking it, those that actually try it.
Right.
And I think it's been a slow road for them to get people to realize that it is good stuff because of just exactly what you did.
Right. Okay, just what I did, huh? Okay, so I will atone for that. I'll have to get one and try it out. So the last one I want to talk about from Wee is the Roman, Alessandra DeSantis's Roman, and it's beautiful. It looks kind of like a patata, like the traditional Sardinian knife, but it's got a more triangular shaped blade, and the handle kind of looks Navaja-ish. Is this a friction folder? Because it's based on a traditional friction folder.
I don't know yet, and that will be the big deciding factor on the blade is what kind of pivot, lock, or retention for the blade that they have in it.
Yeah. It's it's practically a 4-inch blade, which is lovely. S35 VN. It's got that beautiful handle. This is one I gotta say that I would buy even if I had just bought something else, because I would say, well, I'm Italian and this is part of my heritage and I owe it to myself and my ancestors to buy this. That's how I justified buying the Spyderco Patata right after I bought a Sabenza. I was like, well, yeah, my great grandparents would want me to do this. Yeah, right.
No, they didn't care. But anyhow,
they would say, save your money. What's your problem?
Right.
Anyway, so that brings us to the end of the Wee Knife SHOT Show. I see some really interesting looking stuff, and I'm pretty excited. So I wanted to bring something up with you. This just sort of came up.
Okay.
You have a Best Tech experience. So I loaned a good friend of mine. He was actually a guest on the Knife Junkie podcast, Drew Swift, former Marine Scout sniper and a man who uses his tools like a man who uses his tools. I loaned him my Best Tech Kendo, and this is how it came back to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Well, it's interesting okay. He broke this prying.
Well,
So I was like, well, Drew, it's not a screwdriver. He's like, I do that with my 940 all the time. And I was like, okay. But it's interesting to see where it broke, though. I think this is cool to look at because of how, that channel is milled out for the stop pin.
Right.
Excuse me. And then there is a smaller radius of steel. And so it, naturally it's going to break in the weak point. It was just kind of cool to see. This is what happens when you pry with a folding knife,
Well, yeah, and it's a good example because like that blade's D2 and Best Tech, I think they put their D2 up around 60 HRC. So it's hard, and hard also means somewhat brittle.
Yeah. So you know what? I loaned this to my friend, and I made it an indefinite loan. Basically, I gave it to him. But then when he broke it, I was like, "You broke my Kendo? I love this knife. I love that blade shape, and that's an amazing handle. I'm gonna have to get maybe the titanium version."
Yeah,
but
and if you talk to Best Tech, they'll probably help you out on that.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think of that. I should mention it. But they would be in their rights by saying, "Why were you prying with it? Why did Ray Laconico give that killer design to those goofy artisan cutlery folks? Why not MBK Alliance Designs, who have been crushing it?" Any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I didn't see Ray's design, but I know that Artisan Cutlery has been fairly aggressively trying to get people to do designs with them. And I think Ray Laconico may have done one with them early. So might just be his thing. He likes those guys.
Mm-hmm. Artisan Cutlery. I haven't quite warmed up to them quite yet, except I have this cool Kinetic Tool from them. Half switchblade. I can't do it. I don't want to smash all the stuff around me, but half switchblade, half bally song. It's an interesting bit of engineering for sure. Yeah. I think if they made this with a live blade, there would be a lot of people cutting themselves just because you kind of lose track after a while.
Yeah, and I know some of the guys over at Artisan Cutlery, but we snatched up my favorite guy from over there, so
so there's no need. I shouldn't say it like that, but
I wouldn't say there's no need, but it would make things substantially harder because we don't know anybody.
I got you. Okay. Well, so Zell, let me ask you about automatics.
Yep.
You mentioned before. Well, I mentioned before that I've had this Launch 9 that I just kind of randomly bought from someone off of Blade forums because I've been curious about these smaller Kershaws, and this thing is outstanding. I mean, it's built like a tank. It flips. I mean, it has an incredible spring power. This is a great little knife, super sharp and thin. I don't know. Well, it's been a great week. I haven't been able to let go of it. What are your thoughts on automatic knives and stuff?
I have several OTFs, and I have 0 out the sides.
Why?
Because I just can't, in my mind, figure out a good reason for an out the side right now.
You mean because it's cool isn't enough of a reason? No.
Well, I mean, this is cool, and it opens just as fast.
Yes.
And so why complicate the mechanism?
Spoken like an engineer. I cannot disagree with you there. But I don't know. Lately, there's been something appealing about it. Maybe it's a similar appeal that you find with a gun. You know, it's like engineering. You still got springs, and your actuate. You know, there's a level of abstraction. You're pressing a button, and then the blade comes out. You're not pressing the blade, and the blade comes out. You know what I'm saying? So maybe.
Oh, I completely hear you. I love, like, I've got a guy that I work with who has several Microtechs, and I love to occasionally just pick one of them up and hit the button on it.
Yeah.
But right. Oh no, he's got out the side.
Oh, out the side. Oh yeah, those are nice, man. Did you guys see that double detent with a pin on a lanyard? You push through the handle to lock the knife. Are you talking about on Artisan Cutlery? Okay. That's on the that big giant Warncliffe they've been pushing recently. You know what I'm talking about?
I did not see whatever they've got at SHOT Show, but about a year ago I saw what was to become whatever that is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. So Spartan has made an awesome new auto. Oh, I like Spartan. I like Spartan's fixed blades a lot. Their folders, I'm hot and cold with. I love the Harzy, but I just love Harzy's designs. I mean, he could design for anyone, and I'd like it, I think. But I love Spartan's fixed blades. Awesome. So yeah, this I'm gonna see about. I'm gonna keep trolling blade forums to see if I can get any other cheap. You know, it's kind of hard to get them shipped to my location because I'm allowed to own them, but I'm not allowed to carry them. And some people get squeamed. Yeah, it's such poppycock, you know.
Yeah, but you know, the USPS doesn't care.
No, but some purveyors of knives care. I've found out. So blade forums is kind of the way to go. So any new knives from that you've picked up recently?
Not exactly a new one that I picked up, but one I actually got out of the box and started using.
Oh,
that's a Performance Series SNG. Ooh. I've had it for about a year, maybe longer. I ended up with it by mistake, actually.
What an awesome mistake.
And I really thought whenever I got it that I would just resell it because I've got SMFs and SNGs and didn't need a Performance Series, right? Mm. Well, I got it out a few days ago and carried it a couple times, and I need a Performance Series SNG.
What makes it a Performance Series? How do you differentiate?
Well, in the before times, we can say the Performance Series, it's all titanium.
Okay.
And it's got a deep carry pocket clip and unknown blade steel. It's part of the Performance Series. I'm sure if I called Mick, he could tell me what it was. Or he could look it up, but it's not marked on the blade.
Right.
And it's like getting an actual custom. There's time put in to making sure everything's perfect. You know, it's on bushings, but I mean, it could be, see if I can get that squared up.
Oh God, that is nice, man.
And well, like I said, it's not new, but it is. Because I bought it, I put it away, and never got it out till about 2 weeks ago.
Jeez, I had an SMF a while ago, a couple of years back, and I sold it to fund some other purchases, and I'm still talking about it now. I regret it, and now every time I'm trolling around for a Strider, which you're just trolling around, and I see Striders, I'm like, I just can't. I can't. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to ask you here in front of God and everyone else, I'm going to tell you, if you have any Striders you want to get rid of, ask me first. I want right of first refusal.
I have an S30V SMF back there I'd sell.
Okay.
We can talk about it later.
We'll talk about that later. Ooh, I'm getting excited. I just bought, before we move on to these next couple of things I want to talk about, I just have to say, I just bought a VECP, a VSEP. At Les George, and I've been lusting after that knife for years, and I finally found one, and have finally had the money at the time and all of that, and
right.
But I bought it from someone who's very well vetted, but in Singapore, and I'm a little bit Oh, but you know what? I've gotten knives from people in other places before. Just because you're in America doesn't mean you're trustworthy, and just because you're outside of America doesn't mean you're not. But it's and then I worry about customs and all that stuff too. But
Well, coming into the United States, the chances of it getting stopped in customs are really small.
Oh, okay.
And even if it does, they're looking for drugs and stuff like that. They don't care about a knife.
Yeah, they might care and put it in their pocket, but yeah.
Well, there's too many cameras on them anymore for that.
Oh, okay, that's good. But maybe they get turned off accidentally, and maybe the footage gets erased, like someone else we know.
It could.
Yeah.
Now going the other way, that always worries me. Trying to
Okay.
send something, because customs in other countries, and it's always about customs. Customs in other countries can be awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like I sent some stuff to Prague one time, and it finally got to the guy, but it took almost 3 months.
Whoa. That's and those 3 months, everyone's starting to sweat, and then you start thinking something's wrong, and then it shows up.
Well, I wasn't sweating too much, because if I send anything out of the country, you pay for it. I get tracking as far as they'll track it. And
Right.
once the tracking ends, and you're going to pay for that too.
Yeah.
If you buy the knife, and I'm going to send it FedEx or DHL, and it'll be tracked as far as they'll track it.
And then it's your problem.
Yeah. And once it leaves the United States, I'm done.
Alex, ooh, perfect subject. I bought one from Ukraine. Very risky. Western Union. Yeah. Well, he's been reaching outside of the country a lot to some of the. Yes. He said mine's a version 1 with the version 3 clip. Hopefully it gets here, and hopefully it's awesome.
It will.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, hopefully it arrives. He seemed on the up and up, and he had a great Blade Forums rating. So what else can you do? So I wanted to ask you, Zell, do you have, this is a question that came into us from Patty's Potato Peelers. He's awesome. A lot of people know him on YouTube, and he's been tuning into this a lot. What do you think are the best knives, $50 and under?
The absolute best one is the Kershaw Leak.
Okay, the Leak.
I carried one of those for years.
Okay.
And I carried them for work because of the blade profile. And I would literally, every time I saw them on sale, I'd buy another one because I knew I was going to break them.
Okay. All right. So it's stout enough to be put through a good, solid year's worth of work, or however much. And it's hollow ground, and it's thin. It's got that precise tip, which also means it might break easily. So it's a good thing it's under $50 is what you're getting at.
Oh, absolutely. And, today though, I don't know, what's yours, Bob?
Well, I don't, I was thinking Kershaw. I was thinking the Link, excuse me. It's a little more in my size range preference, and it's USA made. It's got that, it's beautifully shaped, but I don't have that. Well, I had one and I liked it, but I got rid of it. For me personally, that I have experienced and loved are the Tangram knives. Now, we haven't heard much from Tangram this year. It's been more of a Civivi kind of year this past year, but Tangram is the down market version of Kaiser knives. And I have the Santa Fe. It's the one remaining Tangram that I kept, and I love that knife. Yeah, there aren't too many knives under $50. Yeah, I'm not much of a snob either. I have them, but those are because I went through a period of stocking up a high value knife collection, a la Nothing Fancy, and then ended up getting rid of pretty much everything except for a few. And the Tangram Santa Fe is one of them. It's beautiful, nice, slate bellied Warncliffe.
Okay, James is going to lead us into what we were going to talk about next, I think. Is the Leak better than the Backlash? Backlash being a Civivi and the Leak being the US-made Kershaw.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're going. We're going to take this conversation, because Civivi and the other Asian companies and our OKC Rats.
Mhm.
Those are great knives. It's especially in D2. The only problem is all these Asian companies have swooped in, and right now you can get this Wyvern from Civivi, and it is a stylized knife.
It's pretty cool looking.
And it's like $48. Maybe it was 52, but right around there. This is their new Chronic.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
And it's less than $40. And this does bring that, what we were talking about earlier, the 9CR18 MOV back into it.
Okay, but that's like saying 440C. And
right.
I think things have come back around to I agree, James. Best $25 I ever spent.
Mm-hmm.
But I think things have come back around to people accepting 440C for how awesome it is. It was kind of an old school steel, and of course it's not powder, but knives were made from that for a long time, and they did quite well.
Right, and some of those old buck knives aren't bad either. That Edwin's talking about there.
Yeah.
It's not the 112; it's the Esquire or Squire, whatever they call that one.
It's a notch below the 112.
Yeah, it's like a 2-point-something inch blade. I carried one of those as a secondary for a long, long time.
They're beautiful too. I love the little bucks. Excuse me. Barry says steel wheel cut jack and modus. Yeah, love the look of the modus. Never had one. Had a cut jack. Loved it, but had to move it along. But yeah, that cut jack was a great little knife because the blade stock was very thin. It was almost fully flat ground, and the blade is broad, so it had a chance to come to a nice fine edge. Great little knife, and it was D2, and I got it for $25.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was sitting
that's
in
a heck of a deal.
Yeah, man, sitting in the old Amazon bin for months, and then I saw it at 25 and I bought it. Firebird Ganzo. I've never had a Ganzo, unless I've had a Ganzo and didn't know it because they've OEM'd for other companies.
Okay, so I don't do any Ganzo branded stuff. There's a video about that on my channel. So
why is that?
They tend to replicate down to the T other knife designs. They did. I don't think they do that anymore, but they're still selling all the older ones. Mm-hmm. And as a guy that designs and sells knives, I just can't support that.
Yeah. Well, it could be you next, man.
Well, yeah. There's already been, if you dig deep enough in AliExpress, you can find the Todd Knife and Tool knives.
Sons of guns, man. That's got to burn your britches. I mean, that is not imitation being the highest form of flattery. That's imitation being the highest form of ripping you off. Bird knives. I don't have any bird knives, but yeah, I think some of the lower end, if they're anything like the lower end Spydercos, yes, most definitely. The Tenacious. I don't even.
Well, yeah, I have a bone to pick with Spyderco over that. They have this Bird Knives brand, which is kind of like their Civivi or whatever, or their Kershaw to the ZT stuff, but they keep it in this the 8CR13 group with a little bit of one of the CPM steels sprinkled in. They could really be using that to fill that gap between $25 and whatever a low-end Spyderco costs now.
Right. Like if you want a Delica, it's going to run you $80 for VG10 and Grivery or whatever that stuff is. But if you want the equivalent bird, I agree with you. They could be in that middle ground and giving a better steel. I take exception to the opening hole on the bird. I think it's ugly, man. It looks like, I don't know.
It's just supposed to be a functional knife at a good price, man.
Hey, but you don't have to make it ugly.
Okay, all right. But and Rusty, I from what I've seen, you're right. Ganzo has done much better, but they haven't went back and taken care of some of what they did in the past. They're still selling them through, and until they become what I'm going to say is honest, which isn't the right word, but until they become an honest knife company, I'm personally not going to deal with them on YouTube or in my own life.
Yeah, it's like the mob family trying to go legit, like as soon as like all of your interests in drugs and prostitution are sold off and you're only selling olive oil, I'm not going to do business with
There you go. Yeah, but you're Italian, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, my olive oil, I can't, So I was thinking also there's the honey badger that's got a lot of press. To me, never held one.
I haven't either.
And the handle just, ugh. But I like that, I like that it's a weird, quirky name. I don't know what I like about it. I haven't had one. I guess I like that some of the people I like it. And so I'm like, it must be something there.
Yeah. And I think that you and I may be missing something here.
What's that?
Okay. Well, whenever we look at a knife, we look at the function, the usability and stuff, but we're at a point where, earlier we're showing off $1,000 knives. Aesthetics have become important to us. And a lot of these people that, and our friends included, are buying these knives to use the heck out of them. Aesthetics aren't as important.
Right. And you know what else is important is availability, actually. I mean, you mentioned the Leek before. I always thought the Leek and the Buck 110 were the ideal knives for YouTubers to use as comparison blades because they're in every single Walmart in the country and they're probably in the most homes. Not everybody has a paramilitary 2. That just seems to be the trademark, the benchmark. Oh, let me compare this to a paramilitary 2. Well, not everyone has spent $140 on a pocket knife,
Yeah, whenever I did those things, I would always use a 110 and a Delica.
Yes, that's right. You were a 110 guy, and I always thought that was right on because, who hasn't at least seen a 110?
But
everyone.
A Leek is another thing too, and you're right about availability because, like I said, with the Leek, I would have maybe 3 or 4 of them in a drawer, waiting for me to break one.
Yeah,
because I would get them for $30 to $50, and I would just throw them in the drawer and Frankenstein them together or whatever. And
yeah. And Barry likes his honey badger. It's his favorite fidget knife, he says.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that appeal.
And he also brought up that steel that Spyderco is using in the bird knives, the CTS BD1.
Oh yeah, BD1, right?
Which is a really nice steel.
That's what your lightweight Mannix is, right? That you held up.
No, mine's silly. It's S110V.
Oh, of course. What am I thinking? Jeez, I should have recognized that shade of blue. Rusty seconds the honey badger. Before we move on to bearings versus washers, I wanted to say I also thought of the low-end cold steels like the Working Man and the Pro Light, and they are in the $25 to $35 range. They've got the Triad lock, which is super strong. So if you're using these for work, they're going to do you well. 4116 Krupp steel, which I have a couple of neck knives, I believe, cold steel neck knives in that material. And, it's soft, but it sharpens up quickly and easily. And also there's the Luzon. Let's say that you're a psycho like me and you have a collection of giant cold steel knives and you don't want to spend premium dollar on it. You could always get a 6-inch Luzon for under $50. So, the options are many.
They are, and with what the Asian companies are doing right now with that.
Agreed, Alex.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, Alex. Financials can be very important.
and willingness to do anything. So
That's
please,
true.
What were you saying?
Okay, well, where I was going was these Asian companies, QSP, We, Best Tech, Artisan Cutlery. There's, I don't know, like a dozen of them now.
Right? Yeah.
QB Knives. What they've done in this around $40 to around $100 range, especially with the Civivi line coming out, is just amazing. And it's actually, from what I can see, it's splitting apart again the 150 and up maybe even taken some sales from it.
Oh, wow. So are there, I don't know if you know this, but maybe you do through your connections over there. Are these knives popular in China? Can they own these in China? Are these, what's that? No?
Oh, now own them, I'm not sure about.
Mm-hmm.
Actually carry them? No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You have kind of like here, where in some states you have to have a CHL to carry a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
Over there, you have to have special permission from the government to carry a knife.
That's too bad, man, because they are in a knife-rich environment right now, and there have to be more knife junkies over there than there are over here because there are just so many more people. So it's
Right.
too bad. Hopefully someday they'll get. Well, I'm not going to wax philosophical about that. Barry says I have a UK PK with BD1, and it okay. I maintained excellent knife and straps.
Yeah, the BD1 steel is at those price points is just amazing.
Cold Steel was using it for a while. I know. Spyderco has been using it in. I think that's what's going to be my gateway lightweight Mannix. I don't have one, and I think I'll go inexpensive first and go.
Oh, just get the 110B one.
I don't know. I'm afraid of sharpening that. So,
but you only have to sharpen it once.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. And hopefully, if they did their job, I never have to sharpen it.
And I don't know where I put that. I may put it back up. But I literally sharpened that thing like 3 years ago. I did have to sharpen it twice because it had the Spyderco burnt edge.
Right. Oh,
but
okay. You had to sharpen through that, basically?
Yeah.
Okay.
But sharpened it, and I have not sharpened it since. Now, it stays in the shop. It doesn't go out and hack on things. But it might hit a strop once or twice a year. But yeah, the stuff's awesome.
That's so cool. Well, I just like knowing that people who actually hard use their knives in shops and such, can report back and say that my money is well spent. Bearings versus washers. Oh, I agree. Hang on.
Yeah.
Swiss
absolutely.
Army knife. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Especially if it's got the scissors and the toothpick and the tweezers.
Yeah. I carry a 58 millimeter Swiss Army knife every day.
Okay, I am going to do that. I am going to talk about stropping and do a little focus. Oh, that's cool. That is cool. So I was talking the other day with Slicey Dicey. Do you know him?
Mm-hmm.
On YouTube?
Yeah, I know Brian quite well.
He just received an amazing gift from a viewer of 3 knives, 2 Spydercos and a Hinderer, which is mind-blowing. But the Hinderer had that Flying Tigers emblem on the side, and he was actually in the Flying Tigers. So that's pretty badass.
Yes. Yeah, I've got one that's got the Warthog on it somewhere. And I thought it had it up here. I guess maybe I don't, but
love that. Yeah, if I had to fly a plane to work, it would definitely be the Warthog, especially living where I live. So bearings versus washers. Josh from Razor Edge Knives, who just totally resuscitated and gave brand new life to this beautiful XM18 and reground it.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Can't sing his praises enough. I mean, this used to be a pry bar. Now it's the sharpest knife I have. It's like a straight razor. Awesome. But anyway, he wanted to know what are the benefits of bearings? What are the benefits of washers? And I mean, this isn't a debate, but it's kind of like, what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, that's actually a tough one because they both do exactly the same job. Mm-hmm. If and personal opinion, if you're using ceramic bearings with cages that don't rust, whatever material, something that doesn't rust, preferably a metal, and you're using phosphor bronze bushings, it's kind of a toss-up. It really comes down to feel for the knife or purpose for the knife. Like we talked about earlier, the root kit coming up is on bushings. And that was by our request because we wanted it to have that feel. Mm-hmm. Now, the Exploit, which I don't have a prototype of, but I've got a print of.
Oh, cool.
This one will come on bearings. And it's the same opening mechanism, but just difference in what we wanted out of the knife. And, this one will have a bit poppier detent. Mm-hmm. and it's not a front flipper, but you might be able to get away with it. This one won't. It's always going to have that little bit of
drag.
Right, hydraulic drag on it, which just feels nice.
Yes, I agree. Sometimes, for a flipper, I'll use this malware here. You might be familiar with it.
I've seen one of those.
with flippers, definitely, I love that. I love that bearing feel. But there is definitely something nice about just slowly opening a knife and then closing it, but having an even resistance both ways. You know what I'm saying? It's not choppy.
Absolutely.
But yeah. I used to think that because all of my this is when I first started getting knives with bearings, they all seemed to be beautifully centered and rock solid, whereas my washer knives, some were, some weren't. But now experience has shown me this. I gave a friend of mine a Kaiser, a Dorado, and it's on bearings, and he, I would carry that every 90 days, whatever it is, I carry it every once in a while. He was carrying it every day, and after like 3 weeks, he's like, yeah, I've been showing this off to my friends like all the time, and all of a sudden it's not like staying locked, and the action is all weird. It used to be super smooth. And so he gave it to me, and it was very odd that you would flip it and the lock barely engaged, but nothing felt loose. So I took it apart, blasted it out, cleaned it and everything, and did not find anything egregious. Put it back together, and it worked perfectly. And so to me, the only thing I can conclude from that was that it was some very small, unnoticeable bit of gunk that totally jacked the whole system up. And that knife only had, if I'm not mistaken, one screw at the very end and the pivot. And I don't know, maybe that's not enough to keep everything perfectly aligned, or what do you think that was about?
My guess is that the pivot screw was a bit loose on it, just a smidge, and that will throw even a bushing knife, that will throw it off some. And kind of the thing is with the two different methods, with a bearing knife, you can get away with a lot because you can run the pivot up a little tighter and force the knife to be square.
Okay.
With a bushing knife, you can't do that.
Right, because it's just not gonna move. Whereas there's so little surface area touching with the roller bear or with the ball bearings that it will still be able to move even if you've cranked down on it.
Right, and the whenever we started making washer bearings or washer knives in the shop, it was a whole new learning process. We had to change the method for doing the pivots. We had to change some of the methods for drilling holes because everything had to be square, perfectly square.
So would you say it was a more or less forgiving process?
Way less. It's much more exacting to do a good bushing knife.
Wow. That seems to come as a surprise to me for some reason, but I can't quite figure out why. It just seems like they've been that way for so long that
well, it's like this SNG performance series that we were looking at earlier.
Yeah.
The knife is perfect on bushings, and that means that Mick and his guys spent some time on the knife and on the setup on all the machines.
Right.
And we went out. We can go out. My brother and I can go out, and in 2 days, working 8 or 10 hours, we can push out a new bearing prototype.
Oh.
If we're going to do it for a bushing knife, you can add another day or two to that.
Right, because we've got a lot more exact to get there.
Right.
Hey, Jim, can you bring up Alex's the last comment that was up? Cultratech. Oh, do you know anything about these guys?
No, I don't.
Cultratech has proven to be smooth drop action on washers. as most bearings. Yes, you just got something. Right? I think Alex just got something from them. If I'm not mistaken, he's got an incredible collection and a great taste and is not squeamish about getting the good stuff. So one last listener request, and I have to say, Dave Everett, if you are listening, I am sorry. I owe you an email. I just kind of found the email today, and I know you called the listener line too, and I don't know what happened, but I will be getting back to you in email form. But you were asking about knife collection storage. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on with me tonight, but I wanted to talk about how I keep mine stored, and then I want to find out from you, Zell, what your method is. I have a Craftsman tool chest, with the drawers, and I have the nice soft, soft stuff laid down, and I have a top shelf, and then I have a bunch of drawers below it. Now that only accommodates most of my my folders. Basically, I have a whole bunch of fixed blades, swords, machetes, and hatchets and stuff, or tomahawks and stuff. And I would like to get the bottom part, the big giant Craftsman chest that my main one right now can sit atop, and then I could have all of my knives in one stealable location, which I can't believe I just actually voiced those words. But
okay.
How do you do yours? How do you?
Very much the same, except you see all these machines back here?
Mm-hmm.
They're setting on a 60-some inch Husky toolbox.
Okay.
And the top drawer, or top big wide drawer, and the other next three drawers below it are all shallow drawers.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got the little rollout thing in there and the knives on top of them.
Nice.
And then for all the backstock stuff I have, I've got some other cabinets that all lock up and weigh too much to walk off with.
Right. Backstock, is that you're talking about Todd knife and tool knives yet to sell, or are you talking about stuff that you've bought that you haven't even gotten to?
Some of it's Todd knife and tool stuff. Some of it's stuff that's here for because of some of the stuff I do with I occasionally have stuff that flies through here going its way to somewhere.
Oh, cool.
And I lock them up. It's a big cobalt cabinet that, I don't know, weighs several hundred pounds.
Right. You'd have to do like a Hollywood heist.
Yeah. I want to see the guy. In fact, I will. I've got cameras on it. I want to see the guy that tries to steal it.
Get it and be like, pocket knives? I stole pocket knives? I have a pocket knife. My info from Bladesmiths is that museums with armor and swords use Renaissance wax to keep rust at bay.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that.
Is Renaissance wax a brand, or do you mean wax from the actual Renaissance that's left over?
I don't know. I don't know exactly, but some sort of wax, I'm sure, would
that actually
take care
makes
of the problem.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? It would shine it up. You'd be able to see through it, but it would create a layer between. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's a great art museum in Cleveland, and they have an incredible hall of armor and swords. And
cool.
Oh yeah, man, yeah. When we were little, go to the art museum. It's like, all these paintings. But I would go right to the armor room. Just amazing stuff. I use large plastic bins that lock out oxygen, and I put a small, cheap humidity detector in with silica. Plastic bins that keep out oxygen.
Man, these guys are fancy. I just use the HVAC system.
Well, that sounds. Oh, Renwax. Okay, Renwax. Okay. Gotcha. But the airtight case makes me think Pelican or a Pelican style. Yeah. Okay. I use large plastic bins that lock out. Okay. For a second, I was thinking like the kind of storage bin you get at Bed Bath and Beyond. But I've seen a lot of collection videos on YouTube where people keep them in the box and keep the boxes stored, and that's a different kind of collecting than I do. I'm not sure what you call that kind of collecting, but it seems like the guys who buy like Star Wars action figures and never open them up so that they can resell them for the maximum value, right. which is understandable, except for the fact that if you want to make money, it seems like a weird thing to make money doing. But what do I know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I even really collect knives, as I just accumulate them.
Accumulate. Perfect word.
Because most of the higher end stuff I've got, a lot of it's accidents. Like the Performance series.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to buy that, but I ended up with it, and I've had people give me things. Like I've got this. I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's the one that Joe, the owner
that's beautiful.
of We, designed, and I named the thing, and I don't even remember what it's called.
I love it, man. That is a beautiful knife. It's reminiscent of the. Oh, I loved it and I sold it. The Rectifier, funny name,
Yeah.
Rectifier.
But this one's titanium, and then every piece of fastener and inlay in it is superconductor.
Oh, jeez.
So I have no idea what that's worth, but it's kind of cool.
It is cool. Alex was saying Apache cases inside a large bench, aka Alex's knife box. So people, the thief comes in, he steals your china and he steals your silverware and that kind of stuff, and he sits and takes a rest on Alex's knife box and has no idea he's sitting atop one of the finest collections on the West Coast. And then he gets up and walks off, all rested.
Right. Yeah, and this is going to sound awful after showing some of the knives we've shown tonight, but I won't buy the Pelican cases because I'm not giving $200 for a case to stick the knives in.
Yeah, especially the one problem that's actually kind of funny. You could buy another $200 knife for that. But the one thing that has always vexed me a little bit about the Pelican cases is how portable they are. Mm-hmm. Just grab it. Like if I broke into a house and I saw a Pelican case, I would steal it and not ask what's in it until I got home or wherever, because it's going to be something good, electronic equipment, something.
Yeah, that's why I like our methods here, because you lock up the tool chest, and if somebody's got the gumption to get that out of my house, they almost deserve it.
Yeah, almost. They also almost deserve to get their butt kicked as they're walking out and I come home. So
that's why I've got a Bull Mastiff.
Oh God, Bull Mastiff. Well, that's another conversation. But I had a friend with one of those growing up. Used to scare the crap out of me. Apache case, $45.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into those.
Storables.com. All right, so knife fight. I just want to wrap this up with a little debate, and this isn't a hot button issue, but I want to talk about the difference between the January announcement. SHOT Show, all the players come out and show off what they're going to make in the upcoming year. And then you have Spyderco, who last year, I believe, changed to their delayed release thing, where they have a couple of releases throughout the year, and then they'll show you what that's going to be. And that is to curb expectation, I think. What are your feelings on that?
I actually absolutely love the way Spyderco is doing it. I don't know why they were. Well, I do know why they were doing it the other way. And this again is looking at it from my side of things, maybe not from the customer side. Mm-hmm. But I think it goes both ways. If Spyderco puts everything out at SHOT Show and Kershaw puts everything out at SHOT Show, etc., like they have for the past several years until this past 2 years or so, then what happens is the customer makes a list. Some of them make a list. They know exactly the knives they want whenever they come out, and they pick them up as soon as they hit the stores. Others look at it, and this is the majority here. They look at it and they go, "Oh man, that's cool. That's cool." And they think about it for the next 2 weeks, and then it's over.
Oh.
And if you make those announcements quarterly, monthly, whatever your time frame is, or whenever you have the knives almost ready, then you can remind the customer, or if they didn't know it was coming out before, then the customer sees something new, and you've got that 2 or 3 weeks. From the sales side, you've got that 2 or 3 weeks. And from the customer side, you don't have this, are they ever going to get that to market?
Okay. So that's an interesting point you raise, especially the point about losing interest. You know how short people's attention spans can be, or how people who are attracted to shiny things might get drawn away by a new shiny thing. But the thing I like about coming out, it's a knife discussion. Let's fight, gents. Okay. All right. So the reason it is superior to come out in January with your announcements is that some people don't have unlimited funds. Some people have to plan out their knife budget. And some of us like to plan it out over the course of a year. And if I know in January that during the course of the next 365 days, I'm going to have to get one ZT, 2 Wee knives, a couple of cold steels, that new Spyderco that came out, and then try a couple of other brands just to see what they're like, and not to mention fixed blades and others, I'm going to want to know what I'm going to need to be buying that year. So I think it is important and the superior way to announce your new knives.
Well, for the minority of you that do things that way, it would be. The problem is from the other side, how many people are going to look at what somebody puts out there in January and they're going to have forgotten it by February 1. That causes problems for the manufacturers, and then they don't get as many knives out to you as you might like. And what about the Kershaw problem or the ZT problem, whichever one you would like, and even Spyderco for that matter, where they announce everything in January and it doesn't come out till 18 months later.
Till December.
That's why having the release announcements nearer to the actual release of the production knife works out better for the industry and for the consumer.
Well, I rest your case, sir. I agree. Well said. I actually have been. I think that is the way to go, especially if you're putting out a lot of knives that. Thanks, Alex. Especially if you're putting out a lot of knives that people have a lot of interest in, and man, that you raised the superior point, which is attention spans and how quickly. Oh, I liked that Warrenclyffe blade, but then they came out with that Warrenclyffe blade. I don't need that one. They're not even out with it yet. So yeah, I live a half hour from Spyderco and their building is large, but I wonder if they're close to maximum capacities. This may be, interesting.
Actually, Barry, they have always staggered production. They will do a run of, say, Delicas, then a run of Enduras, then a run of PM2s or whatever else their other U.S.-made knives are. And pretty much everyone in the factory or everyone on a specific line is making that knife until they've made whatever the number is that they're going to make. And then they'll retool for a different model. That's one of the things that's been years ago. I heard Sal talking about that.
I keep lists. I must have 500 knives on it, and I rank them. Oh, Thomas. Obsessive Thomas.
Yes. See, I can't do that because I do work off that. If I forget about it, then it wasn't worth it thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's a solid. You know what? I for me, oftentimes I'll get something, get it in hand, and be like, oh, this is cool. Didn't need to buy it, but this is cool. Or I have to remind myself, you're not the curator of the DeMarco Knife Museum. You don't have to buy every new unique thing coming out. So
right.
All right. Well, Zell, I think that's about me for the night.
All right, man.
Yeah. We're over here. I think I'm knifed out for the evening. I think I'm talked out for the evening. Of course, there will be more knives. Barry, you're welcome. That about does it for this edition of Thursday Night Knives. I want to thank Teryl Todd, a.k.a. Zelrick42, for coming on tonight. It's been a pleasure having you.
Well, I appreciate being here.
It's been fun talking knives with you. And I'd like to thank all you guys for joining the conversation and commenting. Hope we addressed most of you. Gus were awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, the cutlery lover, that's his dog.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I tried to get him on the show. He not interested in public appearances. Thanks, Alex. I kind of figured. But anyway, if you haven't yet, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, your congressman. All those little actions help and add up. Thank you, Edwin. Much appreciated. And we do appreciate it, too. For Zell, Teryl Todd, and Jim behind the switcher, I'm Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco saying, don't take dull for an answer.